Good morning. We're absolutely delighted to welcome the participants of our Future Health Conference in the Netherlands to Toronto, and of course all of the participants on the global live stream. We are delighted and honored to participate in this very interesting experiment of a global conversation around health innovation. My name is Ilse Treurnicht, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about what happens here at the MaRS Discovery District in downtown Toronto. MaRS is a place that is very specifically designed to drive innovation all the way across the continuum, from stimulating new ideas to scaling and adopting innovation. Of course, a key vector there is to work with entrepreneurs and innovators to bring really breakthrough ideas all the way to markets and to patients. And we work across three sectors: the tech sector, obviously, as an enabling layer, clean tech and health. But as you'll hear, our root system and our history is very much in the healthcare space. The building that's behind us, that is part of the core of our center, is a very iconic medical hospital, the Old Toronto General Hospital, which was the root system of the first clinical trials for insulin discovered across the street. And stem cells were discovered here just over 50 years ago. And today our center is home to not just extraordinary research in stem cells, but also commercialization capacity in this field. Our complex has taken this sort of old, historic, and very resonant history of medical discovery and converted this into a platform that is really designed to drive innovation in the 21st century. We have 1.5 million square feet here of co-location space for medical researchers, for startup companies, mid-sized companies, global corporate partners, other enablers and policymakers, as well as investors. And over 250 organizations and 6,000 people show up for work every day across that spectrum: public, private, basic research, translational research, a range of startup companies, and then, of course, the other side of the spectrum, the market makers. And we very intentionally like the fact that Johnson & Johnson has recently opened their first J Labs outside of the United States here at MaRS, and that in the floor right below them, Facebook's Canadian headquarters is located, because we believe those intersections are actually what will make magic happen in the future. Of course, in addition to people coming to work here every day, we are a hub that brings together communities of interest and communities of collaboration, which is at the heart of the innovation process. We're also very uniquely located in a very dense innovation district in the heart of Toronto, directly adjacent to the University of Toronto, with, of course, its renowned medical school, and its 9 affiliated teaching hospitals, which are in a very, very dense district in the downtown core, and in close proximity to the financial district, and of course embedded in a highly diverse and vibrant creative city. So this urban experiment provides us a place on which we can build a sort of a software system that then drives and accelerates innovation. And we approach this with a pretty simplistic view, is that innovation only happens when you have a very high quality feeder system, the invention system, and when that goes all the way to adoption, diffusion, and scale. And often that latter part is the hardest part. And it's not often about technology, even though a lot of the front end of that supply chain is actually very much focused on discovery, science, and technology. So how we go about this is, in the first instance, of course, use this very rich and fertile ground to build a very strong innovation system, partnering with our academic partners and others in the hospitals to create a kind of an integrated approach to bringing discoveries together, bundling intellectual property assets, and starting and growing more robust companies with a very strong asset base to start with. And then our work is particularly focused on making sure that the most promising ventures have what they need: capital, talent, connections to customers, connections to adoption sites, to get them to scale. Because although we know starting companies is really important, it is actually not sufficient. You have to be focused on making sure that top cohort actually makes it to the market. We're very cognizant of the extraordinary forces that are being unleashed in this invention field at the moment, with convergence becoming real and with exponential technologies like machine learning now creating whole new enabling layers to the healthcare system and also to other sectors. And then on the second part is we are very intentional, and you'll learn a little bit more about that, to connect that supply side to the demand side through partnerships with adoption sites, through partnerships with corporate partners, and working at that very complex policy layer to make sure that we create an enabling environment that actually is not just policing at the front end of the health system, but is actually enabling the adoption and diffusion of innovation. Because this is where the magic happens. This is the only place where we can actually take the essence of the innovation and put it to work on the complex health challenges that face the world today. So we're delighted to be part of this. Greetings from MaRS and greetings from Toronto. And it's a great pleasure to hand this over now to Zeina Kayat, who leads that hard work of the health system innovation and also our Excite program here at MaRS. Thank you very much.
Great, Elsa, that was perfect. Thank you, Elsa, and a very, very happy and warm hello to our colleagues in the Netherlands and all over the world. MaRS and Canada are thrilled to be the first to live stream into this global conference, an innovation in health conferences already in and of itself. I'm Zeina Kayat, and as Ilse mentioned, I lead MaRS's work on the health system side of the innovation work we do here at MaRS, and I also direct a program called Excite, which I'll excitedly tell you about in just a minute. So what I'll do is go a little bit deeper into how that broad MaRS platform that Ilse leads and that MaRS has been building over the last 15 years actually operationalizes in the health space specifically, given we are, as Ilse mentioned, in a few key sectors of the economy that are going to drive a better society for us all: health, clean tech, and tech. So we'll go deeper on health. So the way we think about the priorities for health innovation really map to the major shifts and dislocations that are enabling what we would call the future of health. So the shift from a system designed to be reactive to a system designed to not only be proactive, but even predictive, given their availability of technologies and stratification of risk. A shift from a very much one-size-fits-all and therefore one-size-fits-no-one paradigm of service design to a highly personalized, individualized, configurable, modularized way to deliver services to meet patients and citizens where their values are. The shift from a highly institution, physical, bricks and mortar centered model of delivering services where the patient comes to the care to a major dephysicalization and decentralization of care. This shift from a very paternalistic model to people-powered healthcare where patients are partners in their care and are highly empowered in their own decision-making. And then finally, a shift in business model from us buying volume to buying value. So lots of innovation substrate. And so that's the playground in which we focus our programs and services in health. And the goal always are three things: better health of people, better health of our health systems, and better health of our economies. So the platform, as Ilse described, really works on the two sides. On the one hand, MaRS has a whole program to work on the supply side of innovation with the inventors, the innovators, the startups, but also small nonprofits that are ready for scale, social enterprises, et cetera. And some will pop on their own and really drive major disruption. But we found if we don't also equally work on enabling innovation on the demand side, those vectors to scale, to distribution, health systems, health delivery organizations, and our major health corporations, we won't be able to actually drive the impacts I just described. And then that's not even enough. We also then have to work sometimes in between on what we would call the bottlenecks, the systemic barriers that are interfering with the ability to actually move innovation at the scale we'd like. And I'll get into a little bit of each of these in turn. So on the supply side, just a little bit of a picture of the health ventures portfolio that we support. So these are young emerging health startups that span 4 key clusters. Of course, biotherapeutics and biotechnology, that's about 20% of our portfolio of about 300 ventures, medical devices and medical technologies, so regulated class 1 to 4 devices, of course, digital health and digital therapeutics, as all of healthcare digitizes and modernizes, and then a small but growing group of young startups that are in the consumer health, wellness, and betterment space that are starting to encroach, frankly, on the healthcare space. So a really exciting portfolio. Just a little bit of an example of some of the types of companies that we're supporting, and I'm pleased that a few of them are actually with you there in the Netherlands in experiencing our future health. And so we work with these companies to help them go through the arduous work of developing an intervention that works, proving it, and then it's time to scale it. And then so on the demand side, we have a number of initiatives that we see as really building capacity in receptors of innovation for them to actually embrace innovation, both coming from the supply side, but also generated internally within organizations. So this is happening really at 3 levels. One is at the entire health system. So just to contextualize, we're based here in Ontario, and one of our flagship programs, the Excite program, is based in a $50 billion health payer, single payer here in Ontario, about 13 million people in the population. And what Excite is, and it stands for Excellence in Clinical Innovation and Technology Evaluation, is what we would call a pull model for health technology adoption, where the major payer, the health system, is involved right at the front end in helping identify proven technologies and working with the company and with our academic partners to build the evidence the payer needs to validate a reimbursement and coverage and then adoption decision. And so we've got about 20 technologies now in that program. Very exciting to be working at the level of the system. We also do quite a bit of work at the individual health organization level. Every health organization is now building some kind of an innovation center, unit, office, kind of like what Reshape is at Radboud. We have over 150 hospitals here in Ontario, and we do 2 major things with them here. One is we have a new program to actually work on capacity for procurement, buying innovation. You can't buy a new technology with the same tools as buying paper clips or pencils, and so we're trying to work on programs, and we have an interesting new one of procurement using a co-design methodology. We also convene about 25 health innovation teams from hospitals and long-term care, et cetera, in a community of practice, and you'll hear a little bit about that shortly. And then our third level of capacity is in corporate. So a lot of major Canadian and multinational corporations who are delivering innovation to patients on a daily basis, feeding that pipeline and helping them build capacity for continuous kind of renewal of their services to keep up with what customers expect. And these are just an example of a few of them. And then finally, after supply and the demand side of innovation, we work on a few bottlenecks. So this picture in the middle is the bottlenecks between where we are today and where we know health is going. And so some of those we work on are bottlenecks in how we finance innovation, data flow. If data doesn't flow in healthcare, there is no innovation. Root causes of why there is a lack of health in social determinants, and then some policies that were designed for a health system of 50 years ago that no longer serve, and can MaRS play in tweaking or adjusting those? And so on the financing side, we have an entire center here dedicated to outcomes-based financing called the Center for Impact Investing. An example of a really interesting project they have just launched is a social impact bond in hypertension. for at-risk Canadians to finance the outcome in a very different way from what we're used to. On data flow and data liberty, we have an entire unit here at MaRS called Data Catalyst that is working on a very aggressive project called My Health to give control of data back into the hands of the people who are the rightful owners and have the biggest stake in it, and that's patients and citizens. And then finally, we have a really innovative unit actually led by a fellow from the Netherlands called the MaRS Solutions Lab, and they take a lab approach to multi-system, multifactorial system change. And a few of their projects address some of the key social determinants of health that are very low tech but fundamental to getting the future. And we're doing a really interesting project with teen mental health in high schools. So that's kind of an overview of the platform. And I think the key takeaway for all of you innovators out there is it really does take an entire ecosystem to achieve the hard work of health innovation, where you can pull on multiple levers at once. And that's what we've started to build here at MaRS, and we're very pleased and excited to share that with you. So now we're going to turn attention to really the theme of our future health, which is patients, and patients included, and it's their future health. And the segue to that is this health innovation meetup that I mentioned that MaRS convenes. So every icon you see on this page is a health delivery organization in Canada that is building some kind of an in-house innovation capacity. We all get together once a month and share methods and learn from each other in building innovation capacity. I've highlighted there some of the players that are relevant to this conversation. MaRS, the convener, St. Elizabeth Healthcare, the CEO of which, Shirley Sharkey, will be speaking very shortly at your event there in the Netherlands, a major collaborator with the Netherlands. Radboud is a member of our innovation meetup, the only international member and a great member. And then the Michael Garron Hospital's innovation team. And so one of the topics we took on as an innovation center meetup was this whole patients included phenomenon. And so, kudos to the Netherlands and Radboud and many leaders on creating this movement. And we've now seen it seeped into guiding principles for being a patients included health conference, as yours is. There's now patients included guiding principles for medical journals. And so we asked the question, can we create a set of guidelines for a patients included health innovation center? These health innovation centers are popping up all over the world, and we thought it was time to have some guiding principles to make sure that the whole reason they exist, which is patients, is up front and center. So we, as a meetup of about 25 health innovation centers here in Ontario, took a stab at it. So this is version 0.1, first time to be launched to the world. And we're now opening this up to the rest of you to pick holes at, add to, take away, and let's create the next version. So principle number one, and we came up with 4 as a collective, that patients sit on the steering committee or some other kind of a governance body that makes decisions for the Health Innovation Center, so that they are front and center in shaping decisions about what projects get done and on resource allocation. And I've got a footnote then, when we say patients, of course we mean the patients themselves or their caregivers or family members who have a relevant stake in the work that goes on in this innovation center. Second principle, not only do they sit on the governance and shape decision making, but more importantly, they are active contributors to how innovation projects or work is selected, developed, implemented, and launched, including embedding models for patient-led or patient-initiated innovation and projects, and we took a lot of inspiration from Reshape for that principle. The third is that access to the work of the Innovation Center be front and center in the design of the Innovation Center. So accommodating for disabilities that patients may have because they are patients, and even language, and getting language and clarity to a level that makes sense for patients so they can contribute in an optimal way. And then the last principle, which we thought was really important, we demand a lot of our patients, you're going to hear a lot from one right now, that we make it explicit that we would cover any costs of travel, time, parking, etc., for them to participate in this work. So there's the first version. We look forward to hearing more. We added to that some more tactics in terms of how we might do this, in terms of what kinds of patients, where would we get them, what kind of training they would need, how we might engage with patients to get their feedback using videos and cafes, and we took inspiration from Radboud again for a chief listening officer whose job it is only to listen to what patients want and bring that to the Innovation Center. And we hypothesized ways to get resources allocated specifically to innovation work that's patient-led and patient-included. So next step there is we're going to take this first draft, convene the global community of health innovation groups on a Google Hangout, edit the first version, and then post it on patientsincluded.org. So now I'm going to turn it to the front lines of who's actually doing this Patients Included innovation work. And one of our key innovation partners, a highly innovative community hospital here in Toronto, the Michael Garron Hospital. So I'll introduce you to Marie Iramoto, who leads safety, quality, and innovation work at the hospital, and one of their patient advisors, Annette McKinnon, who not only provides guidance to the hospital, but more broadly to many, many patient advisory contexts in innovation. So over to you, Marie. Let's hear what's going on at your hospital.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. So as Zaina mentioned, my name is Marie Iramoto, and I'm the Director of Quality Innovation at the Michael Garron Hospital. And so just a little bit about the hospital. As Zaina mentioned, we are a large community teaching hospital in the east end of Toronto. For context, we have about 2,400 staff, 400 physicians and midwives, as well as 500 volunteers. The other part that's important for the context of our hospital is that we serve a highly diverse population group. And so our patients speak up to well over 50 languages, and we also serve a very low-income community group. So again, that does help us to prioritize where we spend our time and energy in terms of the initiatives that directly impact the patients we serve. So one of the, so I will say that over the past 10 years, our approach to patient-centered care has evolved quite a lot, and from a focus of patient satisfaction to a focus on patient engagement and truly understanding the patient experience. So I believe one of the reasons why we've been asked to speak is also about some recent work that we've been doing, or recent achievements we've been gaining around our patient video program. So our patient video program was something that we started back in 2011. And it's been really interesting in terms of the reception we're getting, because this is, again, an innovative approach for us around how we solicit patient input, but it's very, low tech and high touch. And so it's been very meaningful for us. Back then, so back in 2011, just to give you a little bit of an overview of our patient video program, all we did was grab a video camera and go to the front lines, go to a clinical unit and ask a patient, how was your experience here at our hospital? Very straightforward. There was nothing actually quite revolutionary about it, but we thought we would ask our patients directly, how was your experience? And so we would talk to them, and we would ask them to be very candid. So, tell us a little bit about the good, because again, we want to reinforce positive behaviors and positive processes with our hospital, but also tell us what the bad is, and tell us really what the ugly was. And so, again, a very candid capture of their experience in our hospital. And we recognize it's their experience and their perspective. But at the end of each interview, we ask the question, what would you do to make this better? And what could we do to have made your experience better? And it's amazing and remarkable that when you ask that question, you get a lot of great ideas. So with that, again, so at this point, we didn't think there was anything truly revolutionary about just asking a patient, but what we did with the video was quite meaningful. And so we make sure we edit the video down to 3 minutes, and then we take it back to our leadership team. So every week, we would showcase this video that we captured. We edit it down to 3 minutes and share with the administrative leaders, our chief, our executive C-suite individuals, including our president and CEO, our chief of staff, as well as our medical and administrative directors. So again, we And through that conversation, we, as a group, would discuss both our reflections on what we heard from the video, as well as identifying improvement opportunities, but also start to identify new focus areas of innovation. So with that, I would like to give you a little compilation of some samples of patient videos that we've captured over the course of the last couple years.
The patient video program started at Toronto East General Hospital in the summer of 2011. 1, they hope to empower the patient. 2, they hope to humanize the hospital experience. And 3, they help us understand the experience that the patient has.
We have to know, obviously, what great patient care is about in terms of quality, but we also have to understand the soft side of looking after people. And that, for me, comes through patient stories.
What has been troubling in my past few visits is that the way I have been referred to by staff, I think it's probably inadvertent, but I don't think I should be referred to as honey or sweetie or dear.
I don't know what's going on, and I don't know if they're busy or if they don't answer my page. They could at least say, I'll be 5 minutes or I'll be 10 minutes, I'm just with somebody, and they don't answer, so it makes me think that they're ignoring me.
My reason for wanting to talk to you today is I think that if I had been more properly prepared before that biopsy, that they tell you a little bit more about what's going to happen, which is there's a likelihood that your lung will collapse. We've done this a million times before. Just breathe and you can make whatever suggestions you would make about how you breathe.
The patient videos are a wonderful way for patients in a safe environment to share the things that they think staff can do to improve their care, but also an opportunity for patients to share the good things that they do.
Okay, so how we've used patient videos has evolved quite a bit over the years, but it continues to be a very powerful tool for us. And we've always valued the use of patient videos within our own internal organization, but we decided that we would start speaking about it a little more broadly outside of our organization, and that's when we realized that we were actually onto something very special. And with that, we would talk about it more broadly, and from that, we've actually been receiving a lot of positive attention for our patient video work. So with that, we are being encouraged by our organization to be a little more extroverted. So I'm going to share a couple of our recent achievements, but really what this is more so a testament to how the voice of the patient is considered innovative in this healthcare world, and I think that is what is actually quite remarkable. So again, recently we've been receiving awards from Accreditation Canada, which is our Canadian healthcare accrediting body, just around how we ground the realities of how we're able to ground the staff with the realities of patient care through our patient video program. Also, receiving an award from 20 Faces of Change, just around contributions to kind of staying focused on the patient and family in our care, and also last week, more recently, with Cleveland Clinic, receiving our Practice of the Year award for the program, just around how do we use improvements and innovation to really enhance patient experience. So again, we are really proud of this program, and we're admittedly we're now happy that we're talking about it more openly. But again, the context being always staying true and grounded to the patient voice. And so, as we mentioned in the video, over 50% of our corporate meetings actually start with a patient video. We talk about it whether it's at any of our council meetings that includes patients. We also use this in our medical quality meetings, our weekly operations huddle. We also talk about it at our HR meetings, even with alongside our unions, just again to ground everyone to why we're here. So again, as I mentioned, through our patient video program, we've been able to reconnect our staff to our purpose in serving our patients and listening better to what they say that they need versus what we should provide for them. And we've been shifting our work around trying to identify action items associated with each patient experience and really kind of going back to our empathetic core and really trying to understand why we are here and ground us to the purpose of that. So, Through these videos, again, I mentioned that we do identify some new opportunities, and these patient voices do help us to identify and prioritize focus areas. As you can imagine, time and money are a scarce resource. We have a very specific and distinct patient population group that we want to make sure we meet. So the idea of access to healthcare and health equity with our population group is quite important, and also trying to understand some of the social determinants and so of health, which are very key to this population group. We are able to capture through these patient videos, but also through our other channels as well. So again, what we've been hearing through patient videos and through our other channels around how we can be more innovative is, just around how can we serve our non-English speaking patients better. As I mentioned, our hospital serves, patients that speak over 50 languages. So again, you can imagine the challenges and constraints that offers us. But also, we have 1 million square feet in our current hospital space. So how can we help patients navigate through that, given that they don't speak English and a lot of them are elderly and may not be very mobile. So again, how do we help them navigate our very old and large hospital? How do we help them manage their anxieties and fears? Again, a lot of some of the key messaging that we're hearing from our videos is around anxiety. What could I've done? What should I've done better? And just allowing them and helping them self-manage their care, which is something that technology has been able to offer us more options with, which has been really wonderful. So this is just a kind of an overview of how we focus our patient experience work. And the important part to this, I can appreciate it's a busy slide, but at the core of this is, why does Radboud work, why is the work of Patients Included created by Reshape and Radboud, kind of important and significant to us? And I think it's of great interest to us because of their manifesto, which is truly a value statement, if you think about it. And it aligns so closely to that of our hospital. So Radboud Reshape will, call it Patients Included. And so for us, at this point, we've been calling it Nothing About Me Without Me. And it really goes back to the core of, we believe patients are the experts of their own experience. So we will ask patients directly. And so that's been, a very important direction and guidance for us in how we guide our work. So we have formally involved patients as partners as early as 1996 through our Research and Ethics Board. So and we've been throughout that actively including patients through various committees to even just more recently, where we've put together an innovation task force that really helps to shape our strategic direction for our innovation plan for the hospital. And we've been including patients in these, very vocal patients at that, just around really trying to understand what should key recommendations for our board of directors, our hospital board of directors, be around what should the structure look like, what should the selection process look like for innovation, how should we be spending our innovation dollars, and how do we properly resource this and select and put the criteria around projects. So again, we've been including patients in our community as integral members of that. So this slide here is really just an example of the types of initiatives that we've been working on. Again, we do leverage patients quite significantly around pilot projects, and this is where partnerships with innovation hubs like MaRS has been really quite wonderful in terms of trying to make the connection of providers that they work with to the needs that we have, and to be able to kind of work together on that has been a wonderful type of partnership. But also, as you hear from the new innovation manifesto around Patients Included, I think what it tells us is that it aligns us well with, and we're very encouraged and really support that mandate as we strive to be one of the first, if not the first, Patients Included hospital in Canada. So with that, that's my piece. I would like to, I mentioned that that we do include patients in our various councils, and so I would like to introduce Annette McKinnon, who is a patient from our Community Advisory Council.
Thanks, Maria, excuse me. Hi, my name's Annette McKinnon, And to use a word coined by Tom Ferguson at the beginning of the e-patient movement, I'm an e-patient, equipped, engaged, enabled, and active in taking care of my own health. There's no roadmap to learn how to do this. Everybody has to find their own way, but there are a lot of us. Part of the reason I ended up on the e-patient path was that the healthcare system didn't really fill my needs when I first became ill. I had a very delayed diagnosis. My doctor, this is representing the revolving door of healthcare, which is only too easy for doctors to fall into. I knew there was something wrong, and he said, "Oh, you're a busy, active mom. It's only to be expected." And one of the other, so once I got on the path, one of the reasons I've been able to be successful is that despite the siloed healthcare system, there are experts, there are professionals who open the door just a crack, you know, so patients were able to start getting in and learning more and making the connections that they felt they weren't able to make, that the doors that weren't open. And for the people who opposed including patients, I'd like to thank them too, because if they hadn't shut the door so hard, I wouldn't have had to work so much. And I mean, people naturally don't want to work really hard. So now I'm finding patients can accomplish most things that they want to. The imbalance of knowledge is no longer so pronounced. People can find out anything they want to find out, and so we've got choices beyond just blindly trusting the system to do its best for us. So as I got organized and as I read up on Tom Ferguson and the patient engagement movement, I got heavily involved in social media through Twitter, and this is a representation of all the links and all of the nodes of a social media conversation around a really large healthcare conference. And I'm happy to say I'm one of those little dots. So that was 2013. The next year, I managed to attend the social media conference and participate in the IDEO Design Challenge, which was amazing because that was how I learned to value the voice of the patient on the healthcare team. I would contend that patients own the healthcare system, patients and citizens, and so they should be included in decision making. But it wasn't until I went through the challenge with user-centered design that I was really convinced of it myself. Since then, I've been able to become the co-author on research papers, a member of research teams. I've presented at some conferences, and now I'm actually on the board of the Ontario SPORE Support Unit, SPORE being the Strategy for Patient-Oriented Research. Another thing that I've done this past year is the PACER program. That stands for Patient and Community Engagement Research. So the PACER program, there should be a slide of us standing in front of our poster. It's offered by the University of Calgary, and it teaches patients to do a modified form of qualitative research. And so first we learned the basics, then we set our own research question. We wrote up the grant application. We sent it to the Research Ethics Board. We did our focus groups, and we produced so far a poster and the final report, which we may be able to send in to a journal for publishing. And in fact, by coincidence, it was St. Elizabeth who was our funder on that scheme, and I understand Shirley Sharkey is going to be speaking. So because of this involvement with social media, I'd been following Lucien Engelin of Radboud University, for years. And when he started the Patients Included logo and the campaign, I felt really enthusiastic that someone else, someone besides patients, was actually standing up and saying, we see patients being excluded, and we don't agree with that. So helping with the charter seemed like a natural extension of the social media efforts. So there's so much I found to learn in healthcare, and everything I've learned, even when it seems non-intuitive, ends up fitting together with everything else. So it was exciting when I looked back and saw that Michael Garron Hospital, where I'm on the Community Advisory Council, has entered a partnership with the MaRS Discovery District aimed at sustainability and innovation in the healthcare system. Having my local hospital involved in a reconceptualization of their role says a lot about their willingness and their capacity to innovate, and I'm looking forward to seeing patient, staff, and administration all working together on projects where they're co-creating and co-producing. So recently we've seen patients having an effect on healthcare and on hospitals, in particular through urging changes in the way parking is assessed, and in the visiting hours, where I see that Michael Garron Hospital recently implemented a new policy called Increasing Patient and Family Presence, which has been a popular replacement for restrictive visiting, which was the past. At my friend's hospital, in fact, they've even gone a little further, and the patients and the staff have been working on the orientation course that's provided for new staff members. And what they've basically done with this new course is they've peopleized the case studies. So the staff looks at John they've named them, peopleized them, and that's a term that Leslie Thompson used at a conference recently. So everywhere in healthcare now, we see patients going beyond their personal issues and beyond their stories. Even though their stories may be powerful, they want to move past that in their efforts to see system changes that will ensure a better future with patients as enthusiastic partners. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Annette. It's a fantastic overview of what one patient alone can do, let alone the army of you that's emerging in really shaping how we all do our work. Some of you might have caught some references to Leslie Thompson. She's kind of double referenced here, so she's one of our top Canadian health innovators. She was the CEO of the hospital that you mentioned that peopleizes the experience, Kingston General Hospital, and is now the CEO of Accreditation Canada, who acknowledged Michael Garron Hospital for their patient videos, and is speaking at Our Future Health over there in the Netherlands very shortly. So hello, Leslie. And lots of similar references to the same innovators. Maybe we'll just spend a few more minutes just reflecting and wrapping up. I've got a couple of questions. So Annette, you're suffering with a disease and an illness. You have a lot of better things you could be doing with your time. Can you just give us maybe an example of where it was really clear to you that having the patient included in innovation work makes all the difference? Can you give us a concrete example?
Well, I think that it really came through to me at the IDEO Design Challenge. I spent the summer reading up on user-centered design and working out problems that I could present to the team. So at IDEO, they took a patient with patients with problems, and they put them at a table with other members of the healthcare team. So on my team, we had a cardiac surgeon, some GPs, a researcher, a venture capitalist even, who was going to solve my problems for me. That's the way I was looking at it. So they chose a problem out of the three I presented, and they grilled me for about an hour on the issues, the details, so they were really well informed. And we came up by the end of the day with prototypes for some tools. And in this case, it was tools for communicating with doctors. That is an issue for everybody. You know, there's the jargon, there's the
Power.
The power, you don't get a chance to say what you want to say. So people are sitting there and they're not saying, what about my sex life? And they're not saying, oh, what about the side effects? I've read this and that. Because the doctors have a time schedule. Anyway, so away from the communications, so we came up with our prototypes. And I had to write something up and speak about them. And I'm thinking, my team is brilliant. They've come up with this great idea, but really they wouldn't have been able to come up with it without including the patient. And I really hadn't seen it so obviously, so demonstrated in a way that even I got it. So even as a patient, you don't really realize how important it is to have the patient voice included.
That's a great example and a story for us all to take inspiration from. Marie, how do you go at your hospital, how do you avoid tokenism when you're going to go out there and declare you're a patients included hospital, an innovation center? How do you not take the easy way out and just, list a net on your meeting agenda?
Right.
Talk about how you've made that transition.
Well, I mean, I think it's just been grounded in our philosophy. It's really interesting when people ask, how long have you been on this patient experience journey? We've always been on this patient experience journey. So I think at our core, I think back to, Annette was referencing some research, being a contributor to research projects. And, we think back to when we had our patients on our research and ethics board before 1996. And if you think of grounding our work, we've got our philosophy with research is, we don't select the right patients for our research. We select the right research that's going to best meet the needs of our patients, right? So it's this switch in perspective that this hospital has had. And to be honest, again, time and energy and resources, it's a very scarce commodity. So for us we don't have the energy to just say, hey, would you like to be on this so we can add you on the list of names? We really need help. We welcome help, we welcome feedback. We want to make sure that when we're focused on something, we want to minimize the amount of rework when it comes to things. We want to make sure that what we're working on is solid. So we involve patients for every step of the way and in different capacities, right? So I think Annette kind of referenced using patients on a particular council. For us, we also, for orientation, that's a great idea. We use patients on our hiring committee. So they sit on our hiring panel and they actually help us choose who is going to be a new staff member for our hospital. So it's real work.
Yep, it's in your DNA.
It's real work.
I think a big insight for me is just like with innovation work, most health delivery organizations are on some kind of a journey, right? They might start with just doing startups or something like that. Then they get into real work. Then they get into community level innovation and don't even become a health organization anymore. And I think that's St. Elizabeth's story in many ways. It's probably the same on the patient engagement journey, right? Because there are still some organizations that they're at the stage of satisfaction and scores and surveys, and that's already a lot for them to handle. And I think you've kind of gone beyond that at your hospital, given you started so early, which is fantastic. So maybe as we wrap up, any hints or hypotheses of where this can go? Annette, where do you want all of us health innovators to head to or to be? And Marie, where do you think you might get to in the journey that you're on? So maybe we'll let the patient have the last word. Sure. So I'll just start with you, Marie. What's next?
Well, selfishly, just based on the portfolio that I own, which is both quality and innovation, I really see this incredible blend, because I think at some point we see patient experiences as this, sometimes this soft, intangible, unmeasurable type of focus. And then also there's this whole quality element, which is right now grounded with a lot of metrics and measures and specific types of tactics and initiatives. I would like to see the blend of both. And so, you know, again, I'd like to see healthcare moving to where patient experience does meet high reliability and quality, and so that they don't have to be these parallel initiatives. They're actually one and the same. You know, when we talk to patients and we really focus on what they worry about, it really is about safety and the quality of care. So, kind of seeing that merge of the two would be great.
Very good. All right, Annette, you get the last word. What's the call to our community of global health innovators in a patients included paradigm?
Well, I've been looking at various ladders of engagement, and you see quite a variety. But the one I've picked that I really think is the most important, is where I want to see healthcare going, is the one that goes up to the co-design and co-production with patients, and moves on from there to the concept of patients as leaders. We don't see that very often. There are conferences of healthcare leaders, but there's never a patient in sight. And I think that's just wrong, because if patients are on the team, some of them will reach the level where they're going to be able to be seen as patient leaders as well. They've recognized that in the NHS, but so far you very seldom see a scale that comes with that. And I also think that in healthcare, everybody's got a professional organization. They've got conferences, educational opportunities, continuing medical education everywhere, and the patients have nothing to help develop their capacity. And patients need to be able to meet each other. They need to be able to connect. They can't just be left to be invited if somebody decides, oh, we need a patient today. So that's my feeling.
Okay, so you heard that innovation community, a call from a renowned Canadian and global e-patient to have healthcare conferences for patient leaders and almost professionalizing and providing a lot more resource and support for this community of very, very active patients, and we all, I think, can agree our work will be better for it. So thank you to Ilse Turnacht, our CEO of MaRS, for setting the stage for the Canadian part of this this conference, Maria Ramoto and Annette McKinnon for giving us some real examples from the front lines of patients included in action, and I've got my pink socks, so I'm ready to engage more in innovation. That's for you, Nick. And best of luck to the team at Our Future Health for a successful conference. Good day.